Hey everyone, I'm Tiffany, and I am super excited for this next presentation and happy to get to be the MC to listen to Allie Nimmons today as she talks about common misconceptions of customer service. Allie is a self-taught WordPress power user for over 6 years. She's spent years maintaining, troubleshooting, designing, building, and even breaking WordPress sites for small business owners. And right now, she is currently a customer success buff with WP Buffs and a GoDaddy Pro Speaker Ambassador. And I'm excited for everyone to hear what she has to say today. So take it on, Allie.
Hey, thank you so much for that awesome introduction. Yes, all those things are true. I'm really, really happy to be here. This is my first WordCamp Kent and my first virtual WordCamp. So I'm really, really excited to be talking to you guys today about common misconceptions about customer support. So everything that I'm about to talk about really, we're going to kind of focus primarily on online support, online customer service, online customer support, tech support, those sorts of things. We'll talk just a little bit about kind of like customer service, like when you think of, retail or food service or those sorts of things, because obviously there's overlap. But I think primarily the people here listening to this focus on online support. And this information is good for really anyone who provides any sort of support assistance online to their customers, clients, not just for the techie people, but for anyone. So I have spent, just a little bit about me, I've spent a good amount of time providing customer support and customer service to others. I spent 3 years face to face in various customer service roles. So when you think retail, front desk, that sort of stuff. And I've spent almost 5 years now working with website clients, whether they be my own or the company that I work for or work with. I spent about a year working with the tech support team at GiveWP. And as was mentioned, I am currently on the customer success team with WP Buffs. So a lot of my time has been spent doing customer support. I kind of attribute that back to when I was in first grade. My full name is Alexandra. And I remember when I was in first grade, my teacher looked up what all of our names meant in class, and my name meant helper of mankind. And I remember being like 6 years old and thinking that that was just the coolest thing ever. And I've really kept that with me throughout my life, this idea that I'm kind of here to be helpful and to help people and to teach people and those sorts of things. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to me, and these are all things that I've learned through my time providing customer support, customer success, so on and so forth, that I think not a lot of people have adopted. And I think we can be better for kind of shifting these mindsets a little bit. So before I dive completely into those misconceptions, I just want to talk about the nature of customer support and the nature of that relationship, right? That consumer to provider relationship has changed a lot, especially when you look at, maybe the way that we thought about it growing up, the way that our parents thought about it growing up, our grandparents. In this age, particularly, so much about that relationship has changed. Before, when with the advent of businesses, right, when you had little hamlets and towns and villages and things like that, you had lots and lots and lots of FaceTime, face-to-face interactions between the consumer and the provider, lots of family-run businesses, probably not a lot of competition, right? Maybe there's one or two shoemakers in your town and that's it. As we came into the 20th century, we start getting a lot more competition, national competition, global competition. And now we have thousands, millions of options when we are shopping for something, whether it be a product or a service. And these are almost all completely faceless companies. Even if you walk into a store, if you walk into a Target, say, if you go into a Target to buy, a pair of shoes, you're not interacting face to face with people who designed, those shoes. All of these companies are trying to mimic each other, but at the same time stand out, and things get really complicated, and that relationship gets really muddled. And I think that that kind of has to change a little bit, especially as we come into the age of the internet. Um, the very first, I just wanted to kind of provide this context, which I found kind of doing some research I thought was really interesting. The very first TV ad ever was in 1941. Nothing really special about it, but that was the year that we, if not the year, it was right around that time where we entered into World War II. Um, and it was an ad for watches or a watch company, and the ad basically just said Belova, which is the name of the company, or America runs on Belova time. Right. Yeah. America runs on Belova time, talking about these watches. Um, and up until that point, a lot of advertising, right, that first kind of step of consumer to provider relationship really just kind of stated facts about this product. Um, and this period of time in the mid 20th century really started to mark a change to more emotional advertising, more emotional connections. Um, and I mentioned World War II because this was a very patriotic time for this country, right? We're entering into this huge, enormous war after coming off of this first enormous war. And you can see that that sort of manipulation of that patriotic feeling was already beginning to become present in these ads. I mean, this is something that we bring into today, right? Just the other day, I saw this really emotional, sad commercial for vitamin C supplements, and it totally threw me for a loop. Um, that we have developed this really tight emotional connection to our customers. And I think with the advent of the internet, that sort of starts to get lost. And we bring that in advertising, and we start to lose it when we're actually building a long-term relationship with those customers. Customer support is about customer relationships, point blank. From first seeing an ad to, leaving a review about how great the company is, all of that is a relationship that is emotional at its core. Customer support is kind of the meat of that sandwich, right? We need to think about how customer support can really help us rethink those customer relationships and solve issues that we are coming to grips with now, like more competition, the facelessness and anonymity of the internet, the lack of accountability of the internet, all of those things. Customer support has to be more supportive. So, the very first misconception, I think, is something that everyone has heard and probably gets under everyone's skin a little bit, the idea that the customer is always right. The customer is often wrong. We probably wouldn't have jobs as customer support, tech support people if the customer was always right. They're wrong about something. They're struggling with something. They have some kind of problem that they need us for. And it's our job to educate them, to find a middle ground, and to help them improve upon whatever it is that they're struggling with. This customer is always right mindset really gives customers permission and leeway to walk all over us, to demand things, to treat us unfairly and with respect. Not that all customers do that, but especially with the internet, it tends to happen a lot. If you've ever worked in tech support, you've gotten those people who just think that they absolutely own your time. Nathan just got finished talking about boundaries, being able to set boundaries. And this philosophy that the customer is always right does not set healthy boundaries. But by creating more of an idea that we are partners, that sometimes the customer is wrong, sometimes the support person is wrong, sometimes the customer is right, sometimes the support person is right. We have to level that playing field a little bit more, create that fairness, and insist that that respect go both ways. So if you've ever worked in retail, food service, probably online customer support as well, I'm sure that you've said, I'm sorry a lot, or I apologize that that happened to you, or I apologize that you're going through this. It's really, really easy and comfortable to default to an apology, especially if you yourself are a empathetic person and you feel badly when somebody comes to you with a huge issue with their website or with whatever problem it is that they're experiencing. You want to apologize. You want to let them know that you feel bad. You want to let them know that you are connecting with them. But an apology admits fault. An apology says that you made a mistake. An apology takes on responsibility for whatever that person is going through. Apologies are very personal and they force us to take on a personal responsibility for how that person is feeling. And it's completely unnecessary. While we want to be sympathetic and empathetic all the time, we can't afford to take on the emotion of every single customer that we speak to who has a problem, especially if you're working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You're speaking to maybe hundreds of people per day. And 9 times out of 10, their problem is not your fault personally. This is something that I really learned working at GiveWP, and that was really communicated to us from the very beginning. Only apologize if it is personally your fault. If you dropped the ball on something, if you made a mistake when you were troubleshooting, then of course you want to apologize and make that right. But if somebody comes to you and says, my site just crashed and I am losing thousands of dollars, that's not your fault. The apologies that you can give them, the best apology that you can give them in that scenario is to fix the issue. So third, I think a lot of people get very afraid, right, about losing customers. To many companies, success means never ever losing a customer, right? Having 0% churn, that's success, right? But not all customers are for you. And if you've worked in marketing at all, you know that no one service or product is for everyone, or it shouldn't be. That's one of my biggest pet peeves as a marketer sometimes is when people want their target market to be everybody. But some people just aren't right for what you're offering, and that's okay. I once heard someone say a long time ago that she actually celebrates when somebody unsubscribes from her email marketing list because it means that now her list is that much more targeted. And that's one person not getting an email from her that they don't want. So it's one fewer person that she's irritating, if you will. And that always really stuck with me. Firing a customer is really hard and really scary, especially if you're a new business or a small business, or if you're going through a time like we all are right now, where clients and customers are having to cancel services because of what we're all going through. But if you can remove one person who's not right for you, or if you can let go of one person who's not right for you, and if that happens through the customer success process or the customer support process, which often happens, that's more time that you can spend earning good business and earning good press and building better relationships with the people who are right for you. Support is an optimal time really for communication and for education with the clients and customers that you have. And if somebody leaves who is not open and susceptible and ready for that communication and that education, that's really all the better for the people who are. Which kind of leads me to my next point, negative reviews. Negative reviews can kind of be great depending on how you're able to deal with them. So we automatically assume, if you get that 1-star review or that really angry review that's written in all caps and tons of frowny faces, that's awful and you want to try to remove it or, smush it to the bottom of the list as quickly as possible. Oops, sorry about that. But negative reviews are an opportunity to improve. Depending on how you reply to them, if you can reply to them in a way that shows your company in the best light, they show maturity, they show adaptability. If somebody comes to you with a negative review, with a complaint, and you can come back and say, we totally hear you, we totally understand where you're coming from, this is what we can do to make it right, or maybe this is what we tried to do to make it right with you, and this is where the communication breaks down. We'd love to rebuild that communication with you. Here's how to get in touch with us. Crafting a really good response to a negative review can actually turn that whole experience around. Even the worst ones are an opportunity to show someone else how you can handle the worst of the worst. It's easy to be a great company and to look great all the time when things are smooth sailing and people are leaving you, fantastic reviews all the time. But how do you fare when you've messed up and somebody calls you out on it in a bad review? Or how do you react when somebody is just angry? Some people just get angry and there's no fixing it. How do you fare when somebody is trying to bait you to that level? How do you react to that? Reacting to that right will show others how you handle those situations and can make you look better at the end of the day. Negative reviews are also really good for internal work and internal improvement, for training purposes, for, showing certain workers or employees, this is where you dropped the ball. This is your weak point. This is something that you need to work on so that we don't get reviews like this anymore. They're great for internal transparency. We learn from our mistakes. I'm sure everyone listening has made mistakes that they've learned from, and negative reviews are a good opportunity to do that within your customer support team. The next misconception is that support and the sales and marketing aspect of your business are completely separate. And that's just plain not true. Support is one of the strongest opportunities to earn new business and to earn repeat business as well. Happy customers are your biggest, easiest promoters and ambassadors. They are absolute low-hanging fruit when you need people leaving you those great reviews and talking about you and recommending people to you. The people that you've built those long-term relationships with through your customer support and through your tech support, those are the people that are going to be in your corner. Support is where you want to funnel in those affiliates, where you want to get those email marketing newsletter signups, all of that good stuff. This relationship, though, has to be earned over time with that good support. So you're not maybe going to send someone an email to sign up for your affiliate program the day that they sign up for your product or service. But, after a few months, after you've shown them a lot of really good support, these two areas really need to have kind of a bridge or a strategy in place where you can funnel those customers into the right places where they need to be. So if you have a customer success or a customer support team or a tech support team, you have a sales and marketing team, think a little bit about how do those teams interact with each other? How do they communicate with each other? And chances are that they don't communicate with each other as much as they probably should. And try to think about some ways that you can connect them a little bit more and really make that a smoother, more liquid flow of positive experience for you. The next thing is the faster you close an issue, the better, right? We want to be all about speed. We want to be all about efficiency. I always think back to when I worked in food service. I used to work at a very popular restaurant chain, and efficiency there was super duper important. We were literally timed on the time it took the customer to begin placing their order to when the food reached their hands. And there's a lot of pressure on us to minimize that time period as much as possible. And I always absolutely hated that because we had a lot of regulars who, liked to chat. If there wasn't a huge line behind them, they liked to catch up with us and, just kind of chat a little bit. Sometimes people were interested about maybe a new meal or, a new product that we had on the menu and they had questions. And it felt so disingenuous and so kind of heartless to just kind of try to push them along as quickly as possible and not build that relationship with them, which made them love coming in to see us. So while efficiency is important, right? We don't want people waiting forever to get their food or waiting forever to get a response or waiting forever to get a solution to their problem. If you're troubleshooting something, we don't want to shoot for the shortest time humanly possible because that's how mistakes happen. Instead, try shooting for the fewest number of tickets or the fewest number of emails. That way you can actually spend the majority of your time solving the problem, no matter how long that takes, solving the problem thoroughly, right? And actually addressing the root of the problem rather than putting a Band-Aid on it. But doing that in the fewest number of back and forth messages possible, it gives the illusion of speed, right? By preventing the customer having to check their inbox all the time, reply all the time, because then to them, it feels like you've been taking forever because they've sent 10 messages, whereas it's only been maybe a couple of hours. And the amount of time that you actually spend solving the problem means a more lasting solution, right? So this can be tricky. It means training customers to write strong first tickets, right? To write emails into you that provide you with all the information you need to really take your time and solve that problem. And that can be really hard if you just have someone writing an email to you that says, hey, my site's down, fix it. That doesn't really give you any information. So training your customers to write those really strong first tickets can help you cut back on that communication time. And sending a strong first response, making sure that you're reading that first email thoroughly and that you're responding asking all the right questions to get the information that you need. Rushing means more mistakes, and it ends up meaning more time at the end of the day. So it doesn't end up working out in your favor anyway. And it means fewer problems solved and less happy customers. So just try to keep that in mind, not necessarily rushing through your tickets, but minimizing the amount of back and forth that you keep. So at the end of the day, we want our customers to be happy, right? And that even in and of itself is a bit of a misconception to me. I don't like thinking of making my customers happy. I want to make my customers delighted. I want to make them ecstatic. I want to make them fans of wherever it is I'm providing support from. To me, making someone happy has this connotation of, satisfying them for now with the given problem and then moving on to the next person and kind of forgetting about it. But delighting them encompasses not only happiness, but surprise and charm and satisfaction and all of those wonderful, warm, fuzzy feelings that we want people to associate with working with us. And that can be hard when you're doing something like tech support, which is, very technical and can be dry sometimes. But thinking about delighting that person and providing them with every single possible solution and every single possible bit of support that you can provide them without pandering to them, without talking down to them, without allowing them to overstep all of your boundaries. That is really what it's all about. So thank you so much for listening to me. Those are all of my misconceptions about customer support and customer service. And I hope that there was something in here that you found helpful that you can implement in your business soon.
That was great, Allie. Thank you.
Thank you.
That I noticed during the chat is that there's a lot of interaction there about the apologizing piece of advice that you. And so one of the questions I was wondering is like how you train yourself or train support people that you're working with to really get that piece that you understand what they're like, you empathize with them, but move the problem forward.
That's a really good question. As far as training myself to like not apologize, that did take a while. Like I found myself writing, "I'm so sorry," or "I apologize," and then literally, deleting it and going back and starting over again. And I think that in lieu of an apology, you're right. What people really want is to feel like, that I understand their problem, that I take it as seriously as they do. Because I think a lot of times you might run into a tech support or customer support or call in even to a customer support. And, this whatever problem you're experiencing is really affecting you negatively and you're concerned and you're frustrated, you're upset, maybe you're scared. And the person on the other end of the line or at the other end of the email couldn't be bothered. It's just another day to them. And so communicating, I totally see where you're coming from. This is not the expected behavior. This is not what we want to see. This is not the way this is supposed to work. And then telling them what you are going to do about it. So, not just saying, "We'll get this fixed for you," but I am going to take this step, I'm going to take this step, and I'm going to take this step. If this doesn't work, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try this, and I'm going to get back to you as soon as I have more information. Providing confidence, really, I think is how you bridge that gap to empathy from apologizing and taking on that emotional toll to being the confident person in the room saying, "I take this just as urgently as you do. I understand how this is going to affect you, and it is now my priority to make sure that you get the solution that you are looking for, the solution that you need." Leading with confidence is what my supervisor at GiveWP would always say. Leading with confidence and being the expert in the room really allows you to provide that. It's almost counterintuitive, but to provide a sense of comfort that the apology might provide, but is not as effective as actually leading with that confidence.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. Like taking ownership of the steps to the solution, not the
Exactly.
of the problem
That's
that they're
perfect.
actually feeling. Right.
Exactly.
Um, there were a couple of other questions that came in. One of them is a two-part question about your thoughts on if multi-channel communication and CRM is like needed to establish long-term relations with clients. And if so, like, are there any tools that you recommend that people use to handle those?
That's a good question. So multi-channel, so you mean kind of like, or I guess I don't know if they can provide clarification, um, like communicating with somebody like via your email newsletter versus communicating with them versus through your like support tickets, sort of a thing, I guess. Um, I no tool is coming off the top of my head. I do think that that is helpful. If you have, multiple lines of communication that you want to keep open for various reasons, like I talked about, tech support, but then also having, marketing and sales and those sorts of things going on. I believe HubSpot CRM does that, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Zapier is also a really good tool that I like for um, keeping that flow really liquid, like I said. So, if you get a support ticket in from somebody or an email in from somebody and you're able to solve that issue and they're really happy and they leave you a great review, maybe that great review triggers a specific email sequence that, um, you know, asks them to sign up for your affiliate program or something like that. Um, so yeah, having all of that accessible to all of your teams, I think is a good first step there. So that if the support team needs to communicate with somebody or the marketing team needs to communicate with somebody, they can see a history of what does their relationship to our company look like, not just what does their relationship to the marketing side look like, and what does their relationship to the tech team look like, but it's their whole user flow throughout the whole experience. So I think wherever you keep it, having it accessible to everyone who needs it, and then using some sort of automation to make sure that you've set up certain triggers, just to kind of minimize the amount of work that your actual people have to do for setting up those communications. I hope that that helped answer that question.
It sounds good to me. Another question came in from Michelle, and you mentioned a little bit about Nathan's talk before this, and setting boundaries and just kind of having those limits. And so she wondered what kind of boundaries you set with client communication, knowing that sometimes they're coming from all different directions.
Right. So at every point in my career, I mean, this is particularly pertinent when I had my own clients, when I ran my own business. Social media was a no-no. I did not, unless it was a incoming, like, hey, I heard about you through so and so, I'd love to hire you or, learn about your services or whatever. Those are the kind of messages I would respond to. But once somebody was signed on as a client with me, I made it very clear that social media is not the way that we communicate. We communicate either through email or through whatever project management system I was using at the time. Because that's just an inundation of information. That's too much coming from too many directions. It opens up avenues for, oh, you didn't reply to my email fast enough, I'm going to send you a Facebook message. And I primarily use my social media for my personal time. So if I'm off work, if I'm in my personal hours, I don't want to see messages from my clients. That's just anxiety inducing for me. So at the beginning of every project, I would always send a welcome kit that included anything and everything. So, a copy of the initial invoice receipt, a copy of the signed contract, breakdowns of everything that we're going to be working on, things I needed from them. And it included a personalized letter, which included all of my boundaries to say, if you send me an email at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's great. I will not be replying to that email until my work hours begin. It might take me up to 24 hours to respond to an email. Please don't send me multiple ones if you don't hear back from me right away. And just kind of literally just like I'm talking to you now, explaining these are all of my boundaries. Please don't break them. Um, if you do message me on social media, I won't reply. It won't work, you know? Um, so just trying to be really clear and upfront and honest with that communication. And I've seen that translate into my time at WP Buffs, where whenever we sign on a customer, we have a conversation and we explain to them how things are going to work. Every time we get a support ticket in to our desk, we send a reply back that confirms we've received it, confirms what they've asked for, asks any follow-up questions, and then says it will take us 24 to 48 hours to reply or to come back to you with a solution, essentially. And so if they write back after 2 hours and say, why isn't this fixed? We can point back to that initial boundary that we set to say, you know, this is the expectation. And if that expectation is unacceptable for you, then this might not be a good fit. So being really clear and open and honest at the beginning of the process is, I would say, the most important thing. And maintaining those boundaries throughout, not making any exceptions. Because once you start making exceptions to that rule, you really open the floodgates and you open a can of worms for those boundaries to be broken all of the time. So, yeah, setting the boundaries at the beginning, making sure that they understand and agree to them. Even if you have to put it in your contract, I would put them in my contract sometimes. And then reminding the customer or client consistently throughout your working relationship of this is what our boundaries are.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. This was a great session. I'm glad that you shared those tips with all of us. And I just wanted to give a little housekeeping to the people who are watching this awesome session. If you enjoyed it as much as I do, or you had any other feedback, please go to the feedback page on the WordCamp website and let us know what you thought. And then also, it is coming to be lunchtime, so there's going to be yoga again today. There will be captioning in this main stream. And then also feel free to go visit the sponsor booths and enjoy your lunch. And we'll have some more sessions after that. And just thank you again, Allie, for a great session.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.